Once you've completed the law firm blueprint, you're now in a really good position to go through the ideal org chart with a client. And the ideal org chart is simply the org chart that they should have if they were starting with a blank slate. So starting from scratch, slash blank slate. And the reason we ask them to do this, first off, it's going to be, if they've done the law firm blueprint, they're going to have some very specific roles. But also, oftentimes as law firms evolve over time, people people find themselves maybe not in the ideal roles. Also, certain areas can get overstaffed over time. Other areas can get understaffed over time. It's just really helpful to take a fresh look. And that's really what we're trying to do with this. And we're trying to answer a few questions. First question is, do we need to hire? Another question is, are people in the right roles? This tool doesn't specifically address that question, but in the context of, or in the process of discussing this with the client, oftentimes we'll be talking about the people, and it will come to light that so-and-so is a rock star and this other person is just kind of a mess. And so oftentimes we can answer this question, even though it's not an intended goal of this. So do we need to hire? If so, what positions do we need to hire next? And the last thing is, do we need to let anyone go? Okay. And the way we do this, so we've done the law firm blueprint, and they've got some things that came out of that. They understand how many roles they need to have in the organization, and then we just start working with them on an org chart. So usually the owner is at the top, and then depending on how it's set up, most of these firms don't have multiple business units. They call them practice areas in the field of law. But most of these law firms will not have multiple practice areas. Some might. But each practice area, if they have one, is typically going to be led by a different partner. So you've got an owner or a partner. You might have another owner or a partner. I'm just going to keep it at 2 for now because most of our clients are solo owners. Some of them are sometimes partners. So we'll keep it at 2. And let's say one does, and I'm just going to pick 2 random things here. One does family law, which is divorce. So family law. And let's say the other one does estate planning. Okay, so they've got that in place, and then they may need very specific things for each of their organizations. So they may need paralegal, secretary, and secretary is a legal term, associate. And all of these positions report up to the owner. On the estate planning side of the house, you'll typically have an owner, and they will just have paralegals. And so we take this org chart, and notice what I've done with it is I have not put in any names. The client's names obviously go in, so let's say those go in here and here. But these other org charts, the rest of the positions don't have any names. And once we're done creating the org chart, and by the way, I'm just going to put in Just for completeness, I'm going to put in an admin here. And this poor admin actually reports to both. Okay. All right. So that's how they're going to structure their firm. They're going to have an admin that's going to support both of the attorneys. This attorney over here has a paralegal, a secretary, and an associate. This attorney over here has 3 paralegals. Okay. That's how we're going to structure the firm. So once that's figured out, that's step 1. Step 2 is to add in names. But there's a rule here. Only if they're a good fit. So we want A or B players. No C or lower. Okay. They have to be a good fit for the role. So a couple of things might happen as a result of this. One thing that might happen, so one outcome, is we will have some people with no role. Okay. In that case, if they don't have a role and there's no role for them in the new organization, we need to transition them out. The second thing that might happen is we have some empty roles. So roles with no people, in which case we need to hire. And it oftentimes happens that we have 1 and 2, which means we need to transition some people out of the organization and hire others. Okay, so that's the ideal org chart. Oftentimes when you get down to this area here, they're going to be looking to you for best practices on hiring, laying off, and performance improvement. Most attorneys don't want to let anybody go, like most business owners. And so if there's someone who does not have a role right now, they will try to improve their performance so they can move them into a role. And so those are great opportunities for us to have conversations with our clients. And oftentimes this last part here at the bottom, when the rubber really meets the road, is where a lot of the coaching conversations live. Okay, so that is the ideal org chart.